Good afternoon, Notre Dame fans. Mike Singer and Kyle Kelly live after Notre Dame's 31-23 setback on the road against Clemson. Folks, just let us know what you're thinking about this game in the comments. We really want to hear from you guys about this loss. And of course, we're going to give our thoughts as well. No Tim Hyde today. He is coaching in his own high school game right now. So Tim is out, but I am sure we'll get Tim on a show before Wednesday because we'll want to hear from Tim before Wednesday night. And of course, Goolsby show we will have tomorrow nights. Kyle, what are your initial thoughts on this game, man? I'm not gonna lie, that was just shit. Both teams sucked. Really, like both teams sucked in that game. Like that was not good football. What were your thoughts, Kyle?
Yeah, the entire fourth quarter was completely filled with punts, and none of them in which the Notre Dame offense could do anything with. The defense kept coming up big for Notre Dame. I mean, they got them 6 consecutive defensive stops, but on those 6 drives, the Notre Dame offense only mustered up 60 yards, no points. That averages out to about 10 yards a drive. That's hardly a first down. So that was pretty much the story of this game, in my opinion. You know, when it mattered most, Notre Dame offense didn't really show up. They ran the ball pretty effectively for the majority of the game, but when they had to go away from the run and throw the rock, Sam Hartman just didn't have anyone to throw to. We didn't see Jaden Thomas all day today, I don't think. Notre Dame's leading receiver, tight end Mitchell Evans, is out with a torn ACL. And Notre Dame has a bunch of young guys, a bunch of unproven guys trying to catch a football and get open, and they couldn't do it against a Clemson secondary that's pretty talented, but has had their own struggles this season. I think that's what it boils down to, Mike. Sam Hartman just had no one to throw the ball to. The offensive line collapsed when it mattered most. Running backs started to weaken, I guess, in pass protection. Just some real struggles on offense. The defense, say what you want about it through the first 3 quarters, but when it mattered most, they got the stops. They gave Notre Dame the ball back, but offense couldn't get it done.
Yeah, folks joining us live on YouTube, watching back, please hit the thumbs up. I know you didn't like that Notre Dame loss, but I hope you like our Blue and Gold YouTube channel, so please support us and hit that thumbs up, of course. Defensively, you held Cade Klubnik to 109 yards. You forced 2 turnovers. It wasn't perfect by any means, but 31 points. One of those touchdowns was a pick 6. I didn't think the defense was the problem today. It was the Notre Dame offense. One of their touchdowns was gifted to them from the Xavier Watts pick. And then what we've seen from Notre Dame when they're playing the better opponents is what we saw today, and it's just a total struggle. Audric Estime looked great offensively. Sam Hartman looked good running the ball. And that was really it. Jordan Faison flashes here and there, but that's it. I mean, Notre Dame, look, multiple things can be true. Sam Hartman, in my opinion, is not as good as we thought he was going to be. That is true. But also, I was looking at, that last drive that Notre Dame was gifted after the film off a fumble. This was the 11 personnel. So these are receivers that were lined up out there. Holden Stays, a good receiving option. He's a good tight end, but he's not Mitchell Evans, right? Rico Flores and Jaden Greathouse, good receivers. They're freshmen. And Chris Tyree. All of those guys, Stays, Rico Flores, Jaden Greathouse, Chris Tyree are like 2 to 4 options in an offense, or in a Notre Dame offense. Maybe even 2 is generous at this point for all of these guys. And that is what he had. And then I think on the next play after that 11 personnel I just mentioned, one of them comes out. I think it was Flores. And then they bring in Tobias Merriweather, who also hasn't done much of anything this year. So it's just very like, who is he throwing the football to? I get it. Hartman's not as good as we all thought he was going to be. That pick six should not have thrown that football, dude. Throw it away, eat the sack, anything but that. So I think both things can be true. These receivers just are not it. Bring on Cam Williams, go to the portal, and I'm not like Flores, Greathouse. They're really good players, but they're freshmen. Like, you're relying on these freshmen, and you don't have a big outside receiver to go. Like, there's no deep threat right now to go win you something. Notre Dame just does not really have that right now. Jaden Thomas, one more side note, Kyle. How about Notre Dame PR putting out everyone is healthy that was on the depth chart? And I feel like it's 3 weeks in a row that just hasn't been the case. Jaden Thomas, I think, can be that guy at times, but he was hurt. Do we know what happened with Jaden Thomas? He was on the sidelines dressed, no helmet, didn't play. Don't know why Jaden Thomas isn't playing, but Notre Dame certainly
most likely. Yeah, most likely a hamstring for Jaden Thomas. Suffered all the way back in that Ohio State game. He's just tried to work his way back on a number of different occasions, but doesn't seem to be full strength. I mean, we don't know that for certain. I know our guys Tyler Horka, Jack Sobel are covering that Marcus Freeman press conference right now. I'm sure Coach Freeman will be asked about it afterward. But at least for the majority of the season so far has been that hamstring injury that has hindered Thomas, and that's why we didn't see him today, if I had to guess.
Yeah. So we'll get to super chats here in just a second. Just doing something for Jack Sobel real quick. Need to post a story on the message board. Yeah, we have a lot to talk about, but we really do want to dive into what you guys are saying. So drop your super chats. Yeah, we'll get to those throughout the show. Isaac says, like I said after the Louisville game, Hartman offers us nothing anymore. Put Angeli in the game. We'll see. I don't know if Notre Dame's going to do that. I have a hard time seeing them benching Sam Hartman if he is healthy, but we'll see. Do you have any thoughts on that, Kyle?
No, absolutely not. You cannot bench Sam Hartman. That means you're conceding the season. Think about how much this guy meant to the program the entirety of this year, how much he's meant to the team, and I understand looking toward the future. But yeah, that just says to your football team you're done for the you don't have nothing else to play for if you bench Sam Hartman. Maybe he's a little banged up, things like that, but no, you got to let this guy finish out the year. That's what he came to Notre Dame to do, and I fully expect him to be the starter moving forward.
Colin with the $10 super chat says, lack of speed at receiver continues to kill our offense. When the other team's defense coordinator knows your receivers can't run past you, it makes playing defense easy. Tight coverage and really limits play calling. I agree, Colin, with this assessment. And that's not to give Sam Hartman a pass, but I don't think there's anything wrong with what you're like. I think you're completely accurate as well. So I think both things can be true. So Colin, I appreciate the 10. It's good to see you in here, my friend. Kyle, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's not rocket science at this rate. Honestly, Tobias Merriweather was supposed to be that guy from Notre Dame. He's just not all the way there yet. They're asking a lot of him. They're asking a lot of the young guys, Jaden Greathouse, Rico Flores. Neither of those guys are burners. Jaden Thomas isn't a burner, even though he's been out. But they just don't have anyone to open up the offense with the wide receivers, and they're trying to recruit to change that with Cam Williams, who's a 5-star wide receiver who Mike, you and I talk about quite a bit on our recruiting show on Thursdays, and that's a name Notre Dame fans will definitely want to know moving forward. Another guy, Logan Saldate, is a speed guy from California, but those guys aren't really going to help Notre Dame, obviously this season, maybe not even next season. So they tried to attack the portal at wide receiver in the winter. They got Caleb Smith from Virginia Tech. He medically retired before spring practice was even over. So they really didn't hit the portal hard enough at wide receiver. Obviously there was more than one guy that they could have gone after. Sure, they were going after numerous targets, but I think they're going to be in the same situation this winter and late fall as well. They're going to have to go to the portal. They need experience on that wide receiver core, and they need speed. And I think those were the two biggest deficiencies for Notre Dame today.
Colin, thank you. Tanner, $5 says last year with Wake Forest, Sam Hartman threw for 337 yards with 6 touchdowns. Notre Dame has better players than Wake Forest. This performance is a coaching failure. Dude, I don't know about a receiver right now. I don't know, man. The thing is, before the season starts, like just put your brain into July optimism, Notre Dame fan. You're thinking Tobias Merriweather, breakout year, could be the leading receiver on this team. 6'4", 190 pounds, can stretch the field with that speed. Jaden Thomas, following in line of the Chase Claypools of the world. The Miles Boykin, like that kind of boundary receiver. And then all these kind of slot options with Chris Tyree and what he can do with his speed and shiftiness. And then these young bucks and Jaden Greathouse and Rico Flores, what can they do to contribute? Now it's Merriweather is nowhere to be found. Thomas has been hurt, half the season? Heck, I'd even say Deion Colsey. He's been out since the Navy game, I believe. And now you're relying on Jaden Greathouse, Rico Flores, your number 2 tight end, Chris Tyree, who's been fine this year, but again, third option, ideally. And then Jordan Faison. Kyle, I don't know if I should be I don't know how to feel about Jordan Faison contributing to this football team. It's great in a vacuum. Like, you just look at him, that's great. Like, I'm very happy for him. It's a great story. But Jordan Faison should be riding the bench. Jordan Faison, Notre Dame should not be playing Jordan Faison. They're playing him because they have to. And I'm not trying to throw shade at Jordan Faison. He's been very, very good. And he's earned his playing time. But Notre Dame should not be in a position where they're playing a lacrosse player, as much as they are. And he's one of their better receivers right now, Kyle. So
he's their best receiver right now, in my opinion. He's the most dynamic guy. I'm not sure what the yards after catch statistics look like. Obviously, we won't have those today. There's more of an advanced metric that we get later in the week. But anytime you get the ball in that guy's hands, he's getting yards after the catch. Chris Tyree's sort of the same way. But those were pretty much Notre Dame's only 2 guys here. I'm looking at the receiving breakdown today. Audric Esme had 4 receptions. Usually Audric Esme doesn't catch the ball, so
leading in yards.
I think that's all. I'm surprised it took us 13 minutes to bring that up, because I think that says a story right there that Jerome Bettis Jr. basically has 33, receiving yards, and Notre Dame's leading receiver. But Chris Tyree, Jordan Faison, 6 receptions. They counted for about half of those other catches. Rico Flores, Tobias Merriweather. Rico, he had a great catch. Those guys are just young, man. They're not ready, and they are ready, but not ready to play on this big of a stage. And there's just being a lot asked of those guys, and you can tell that they're not answering yet. They a lot of good young players, but Notre Dame needs some veteran guys and guys that can separate speed. And Mike, I want to mention this because watching the game on TV is so much different than when you're watching, at an actual game in the press box. I know you experienced this last week at the Notre Dame game. You can see everything. Obviously, you get to watch, what the wide receivers are doing, and if they're getting open, those things. And today, it just felt like anytime I couldn't see Notre Dame's wide receivers anymore, it wasn't going to be a favorable outcome. They just can't get open or separated downfield.
When you watch the receivers, watch the game back, it's blankets. And there are times they get open, but most of the time it is blanketed. Speaking of being at the press box, my plan for today was to be at Memorial Stadium. I will spare you guys the details, but I was not able to go due to an illness reason. So we missed Tim Hyde on our live show. I think it was 2 Wednesdays ago. He missed his flu game. This is my flu game today. I don't actually have the flu, but let's just leave it at that. We're getting through this one today. Kyle, before we move on, lots to talk about. Super chats are coming, and we want to continue to hear from you guys. in the YouTube comments. I want to talk about the ticket buying process because it can be stressful. You gotta okay, so you find the event you want to go to, and then you got to find out where you want to sit, go through the whole ticket buying process. Can be stressful, especially if you're buying those last minute tickets, but it shouldn't be stressful. And that's where we get to know Game Time. Check them out at gametime.co. Make sure it's not .com, it's .co. A fast and easy way to buy tickets for sports, music, comedy, and theater near you with killer last minute ticket deals so you can relax and get ready for that fun that you're going to have. And they do have deals up to the minutes. And if you do find a price better, they will refund you 110%. And with the promo code BGI, 3 letters there, BGI, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the app, create an account. Make sure you use that promo code BGI for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Continuing on with the super chats, Tanner, appreciate yours. Tom says Freeman being a defensive coach needs a much better offensive coordinator. Fire Parker, 100 yards rushing first quarter and no play action. Receivers were open. Hartman missed some throws. But I mean, I'm telling you, man, blankets happening often. I should note so he brings up a good point. 100 yards rushing after the first quarter. Audric Estime had 4 carries for 57 yards to open the game. So that means in his last 13 carries, he only had 30. Yeah, not just, I mean, let's look at this drive chart. This is where it kind of gets like, I mean, I had wrote down in my notes, how fun is this third quarter? It was a bad third quarter. Like I think it was just bad football, but it was at least fun. And then later on in the quarter, Notre Dame punt, like as the game ends, interception downs. Then you go to Clemson, punt, fumble, and then they are turnover on downs as the game ends. Neither teams are I don't want to say are very good. Like neither teams were very good today. That's for sure, Kyle. I don't think there was great football being played. Just overall, it was not a great. I mean, Clemson won. They're up 5-4 on the season, but it kind of felt like they did everything in their power to keep Notre Dame in that game.
Just chance after chance in that fourth quarter. Like I mentioned early on in the show, and if you're just joining us, thanks so much for giving us a listen. But 6 consecutive defensive stops, and I know you just pulled that up on the drive chart. But kind of getting back to the run game a little bit. Obviously Notre Dame couldn't really rely on it on the fourth quarter, knowing that every time, Mike, if you do bring up that drive chart again, and I'll reference it myself just to note Notre Dame's starting field position. Here we go.
Yeah, I got it up on the screen too.
Yep, late third quarter with 3:07, started their own 6-yard line, own 30,
Yeah.
10, 22. Then, they got that gift at the end, that fumble recovery that put them right near, midfield and had a chance to tie that thing up, Hartman interception. But basically going back to my point is Notre Dame's offense just became completely one-dimensional within, that last the last 15, 18 minutes of the game. Just they were forced to throw the ball. I mean, when you're backed up 80, 90 yards every time, what's the easiest way to, move the football? Usually it's throwing the ball. And I don't want to keep hammering the point about the wide receivers. I think, Notre Dame was running the ball effectively early on. They were doing some things, and I was commenting pretty frequently on our loose emoji message board. They were really effective with, some of the power runs where they were bringing Joe Walt and Pat Coogan around from the left side, and that they were really getting Audric Estime out into space. They were like 10-yard gains every time, it looked like. Clemson started to figure that out. I don't know if we saw enough play action today. It seems like I think in the third quarter, come out in the second half is when I noticed that Notre Dame was going with a lot of like crossing routes, and that's how they were getting Chris Tyree and those guys involved. But they didn't really go back to that later on. So that's kind of how it sums it up on offense, man. Just not a lot to work with. Defense, once again came up when they needed them most, and even gave them that stop at the end. Just fortunately, Hartman's second interception of the day.
Yeah, Tom, appreciate the 5. He says we were down 8 the whole fourth quarter and abandoned the run. Pathetic. Hartman missed open receivers 2, no play action. Could have sworn I just read the same super chat, but I'm pretty sure it's a different one. Hartman missed open receivers, no play action all game. This is on offensive coordinator Fire Parker. How much do you put on Parker for this? Because I've defended I'm not defending Hartman when I say sometimes what the hell is he supposed to do? Like sometimes with Parker, it kind of is the same thing. Like some questionable decisions, like the running pain on 3rd and 10 and then kicking a field goal. You'd think if you're running it on 3rd and 10, you're setting up it's one of those, you got 2 tries at this kind of deal. That was questionable, but individual play calls, can I'll let you guys do that. But what'd you think about Parker today, Kyle?
Marcus Freeman cannot say this in his press conference, so I'll say it for him. Notre Dame just does not have the personnel on offense to win big games. They just don't have the guys right now.
Well, Kyle, think about the USC game. Notre Dame wins that. Defense, special teams had such a big part in that. Like that's just Notre Dame. Like Notre Dame has to be. They can't rely on their offense to win a football game right now. Against a good team, at least, right? They need a full offense, defense, special teams. This offense just can't do it.
I mean, we already said it earlier in the show. Notre Dame's top receiving option, Mitchell Evans, out for the year with a torn ACL. Their number 2 guy, who was the number 1 guy for most of the year, for that first quarter of the year before Mitchell Evans really emerged, was Jaden Thomas. Now, going into the season, we knew that Notre Dame was going to be very thin on offense and thin at wide receiver. They got thinner throughout the season, losing Mitchell Evans, Jaden Thomas, 2-year pass catching options, and you're bringing a very thin group down to Clemson on the road, a place Notre Dame hasn't won since 1977. And I know the offense looked okay. Basically had a pretty effective day against Pittsburgh, but just a completely different defense against Clemson on the road there. And Mike has left me up solo.
No, you're fine. I'm struggling today, but we're okay. Damn, I really wanted to be at that game. I looked up the future schedules. Like the next time I can go see Notre Dame at Clemson is like 2027. I'm like, damn, I really wanted to be there, but yeah. Tom, appreciate the super chats. Trash with $5 super chat says no receiver options. Unfortunate. Let's finish strong. Love blue and gold in Notre Dame. Trash, I appreciate you. Yeah, in terms of like the when you mentioned Kyle, like no, you play Hartman because if you don't, you kind of admit to the locker room the season's over. And I get Notre Dame fans are saying the season is already over, right? I mean, hell, after the Louisville loss, me and Tim wore black shirts to represent that the season is dead. Like so we're with you, but in that locker room, if you're a member of the football program, you can't do that. You just can't do that. A fan, if you want to say the season is over to you, right? I got a Notre Dame buddy who said that he tuned out after the Hartman pick 6. Like that is fine, but if you're a member of that team, the season is not over. And I will ask you guys, if you're one of these people saying season's over, don't watch any of the rest of the games because the season's over, right? Just don't watch them. But you are going to because the season is not over. Notre Dame is not going to make a New Year's 6 game. They'll be lucky to end up in the top 15 or something. But you got to keep playing. You got to keep playing the games that are on your schedule. So Notre Dame will have a bye week, and then it's the Sam Hartman Bowl, Notre Dame, Wake Forest, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time kickoff on the 18th. and then Notre Dame Stanford on the 25th. We'll see how Notre Dame bounces back and moves forward. Notre Dame 7-3 on the season after losing 31-23 against Louisville. So Trash, appreciate the super chat. Jay Willie says the strength of Notre Dame to start the season was supposed to be the O-line. Hartman has stunk in the big games, and there's no other way to see it move on. Hartman today, again, not a great performance by any stretch. Hartman that was probably his worst game at Notre Dame. 13-30, 146, 2 picks, including a pick 6. Just can't have that happen. Not all on him. It's a team game, but Hartman is definitely a part of the problem today. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, afterward, some of the tweets or X posts, whatever you want to call them, are coming out from the post-game presser, and I believe Sam Hartman is talking to reporters now, and basically what he said in his opening statement and in response to a first question was, blame me. So Sam Hartman's trying to shoulder this loss. Obviously, it's not all on him. And I just want to touch on the O-line today.
Yeah.
Obviously, Zeke Correll and some of the interior guys did not have the best moments. I know Zeke Correll had some issues early on. He ended up getting sidelined at halftime for a concussion. Then they bring Andrew Kristofic out there. He gets injured early on in that second half, and then they go with the third-string center, Ashton Craig. And I don't think we saw too big of a drop-off in the offensive line play. I don't think the offensive line has been the issue. They haven't been excellent, but I think they've been, obviously when you think of Notre Dame and offensive lines, you're thinking this, I think it's Joe Moore Award is what you call it, Mike, the best offensive line in college football, those types of calibers of offensive lines. But, I think a lot of the, issues that we're seeing when the offensive line is collapsing is, potentially some like coverage sack situations or coverage pressures, that with these wide receivers not getting open downfield. Like I said, the offensive line, they weren't perfect today, especially early on, but I wouldn't really put a ton of the blame on them. The rushing game was pretty formidable in the first half, third string center going in there. I believe that was like his first time basically ever playing any meaningful time. And, he goes out there and Notre Dame's backed up in Clemson territory, and that's where the Clemson student section is. So that was a hard ask on him. There's first-year starters on the interior there. Joe Walt's been terrific this year. Blake Fisher has had his ups and downs, but I wouldn't really put this one on the offensive line today.
Dave 86 says time to forget the portal on quarterback other than for depth. I mean, we're going to change our opinion on that just based on the Clemson game. Like, I'm not saying that's you, but I just you can't just make the decision like that just off the Clemson game. Like, I mean, Marcus Schumann said last week that they'll make that decision during the bye week. Can't believe he said that. That's what he said. So, guess we'll find out in a couple weeks what he wants to do there. So, continues Dave. If it takes a few years to get these young guys ready to compete at an elite level, so be it. Dave, if you're running Notre Dame, you can do that. But if Marcus Freeman says, you know what, let's just play all the young guys and just build for the future, Marcus Freeman will be fired. And they just, what, you're just going to run all your freshmen and sophomores out there and not play your better older players? And then you lose. You're going to go 7-5 every year. Then Dave, you're going to super chat us and say that Freeman needs to be fired for winning 7 games every year. So you can't just play the young guys. You got to play the best players. So Notre Dame will regroup and go again next season, whether that's a transfer portal quarterback or not. I thought it was a foregone conclusion that they would. I'm not so sure anymore, just after some conversations I've had in the past few days. So we'll see what they end up doing for next year. I think it's more of a philosophical thing, what different coaches believe to do at the position. We'll see what Notre Dame does. Kyle, any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think Notre Dame would have gotten to this point with Stephen Jelly at quarterback. No against just Steve, but he hasn't started at a college football game before. Like, is Stephen Jelly getting Notre Dame to hang around with Ohio State for 99% of that game? Where it was like, is Stephen Jelly going down to Duke and pulling off an incredible win? I know Notre Dame's been dominant against some lesser opponents at home, and I think another storyline from this game has just been how poorly Notre Dame's played on the road this year. But
Yeah.
I bet if you asked Sam or Marcus Freeman and the entire staff if they had to do it over again, would they take Sam Hartman? I think 100 times out of 100 they would say yes. So when Marcus Freeman, there's going to be some tough discussions going on in that group this week. I think the first couple of days they have practice, kind of focusing on this year's squad, but I think kind of the theme of these bye weeks is toward the tail end. They start to look for the future. At least that's what we've seen with coaches going out on the road to see high school football recruits. And I think this time around they're going to be really identifying wide receivers to target in the portal. I think that's going to be their number one top priority. Try to get a quarterback, possibly from there. But yeah, I think that Notre Dame made the right call getting Hartman this year. Louisville, Clemson loss, everything in between. I think that they did the right thing, and the outcomes are what they are.
Trash $5 super chat says last year, our wide receivers were getting open, but a quarterback who wouldn't pull the trigger. This year, a decent quarterback, but receiver not getting open. Let's finish strong. There's
different wide receivers, man. Braden Lenzy was out there. Salerno was healthy. Jaden Thomas.
Love Salerno. Throw him out there. I mean, he's not really a topic. He's not really a point.
Salerno, I mean, Tommy Reese begged Salerno to come back. He still had a role. It was different personnel, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They weren't the greatest options either, but more veteran guys
for the receivers to be this bad, for Notre Dame to have more success. And again, not for the receivers to be bad and banged up, right? If the receivers were completely healthy, then maybe this is a different discussion. Even your boy Salerno. But your Jaden Thomas being out, Mitchell Evans included as a receiver, for the sake of this discussion. But for the receivers to be, let's say, in this position where this is how good they are, they needed a lot better quarterback. I mean, Hartman's a really good quarterback, but he's not top 5 going into the season. I mean, our YouTube chats right now, 6 months ago, anyone says anything remotely that's not like Hartman's going to win the Heisman, Hartman's not going to be, or maybe not the Heisman thing, but if you're like, Hartman is not a top 5, top 10 quarterback in college football, our YouTube chat would lose its collective mind and saying, how dare you question Sam Hartman? And now it's jump off the ledge, get him out of town. He's terrible. But that's just kind of how this thing has swung. It's always somewhere in the middle. He's not what we all thought he was going to be. I thought he would be a top 10 quarterback. Hell, I thought he would get to the, it was my bold prediction, keyword bold. I thought he was going to be invited to New York. But for him to be able to have success in this offense, it did. For Notre Dame's quarterback to have success in this offense, it'd be a lot better quarterback, dude, because this team is anemic pushing the ball downfield, dude.
I got some stats for you, Mike. So entering today's game, Sam Hartman, among active FBS quarterbacks, number 1, career touchdown passes, 128. Number 1, passing yards, over 15,093. Passing yards per game, number 6, 264 per games. And then in terms of Hartman career NCAA rankings, 7th all-time in touchdowns, 5th all-time in passing yards. So Sam Hartman proved he was a pretty good quarterback before coming to Notre Dame.
Longevity has been a huge part in that, but yes, continue.
Yeah, obviously. But even the yards per game mark, average things out, number 6, just behind Caleb Williams, reigning Heisman Trophy winner. But, yep, hasn't been all on Hartman.
Ian says best 4-4 team versus the worst 7-2 team. That was definitely a damn good 4-4 team. For a 4-4 team, Clemson's not very good this year, but for a 4-4 team, that's what we said in our Friday videos. Like they're 4-4, but I mean they can beat Notre Dame. This was very much like how the Notre Dame. We talked about this leading up to this game as well. Notre Dame USC, like this was Clemson's Notre Dame USC game. Where Clemson, kind of hobbles into the game and then puts like you're thinking, man, Notre Dame's about to come to Clemson and beat the crap out of them. Remember, Notre Dame just coming off Ohio State, Duke, Louisville, and then they beat the crap out of USC. This was their USC Notre Dame game, and they tried to give it away, but they won. Phil Maffa was a beast. 36 carries, 186 yards, 2 touchdowns. So kudos to him. But I mean, you look at their passing game, and it was not very good. It was just as bad. Klubnik 13 to 26, 109 yards, touchdown and pick. The passing offenses today were pretty abysmal. Ian, appreciate the $2 super chat. Good to see you. Ron says now with New Year's 6 bowl game gone, curious to see what players sit out now. Any thoughts? Ooh, people have said on the message board they're thinking, oh, Hartman won't play in the bowl game, and I'm thinking he better freaking play in the bowl game. I mean, if Hartman doesn't play in the bowl game, I feel like he would be looked at as a total fraud. And even in that locker room, I mean, the guy, it's not like he's going to go be a first, second, third, fourth, probably not even 5th round pick. You're going to go sit out. That would be insane. But I don't know, man.
Yeah, he needs the bowl game.
He needs the bowl game. Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Just going off the top of my head.
Maybe like an alt, but some of those offensive linemen, like they just love playing football. Like, what? I honestly don't know.
Cam Hart.
Cam Hart would make sense with his injury history. But I don't know.
Probably want to go on ice, kind of like Kyron Williams.
Estime as a running back, yeah. That would make sense.
Besides that, man, everyone else has got something to play for. Maybe Javante John Baptiste, but he's not a surefire NFL draft pick. I think. I mean, he's probably a day 3 guy, but I think that bowl games, potentially give some of these guys some stock up late in the year. But
yeah. Rod, appreciate the super chat. Tyler, $2 says Parker has no feel or rhythm for the game. Bad offense today, man. 329 yards, and you still outgained Clemson by 40-something yards. But yeah, I mean, besides Sam Hartman running the ball well on some scrambles, and Estime just carrying the rock really well early in the game, not a whole lot going on. Tyler, appreciate it too. Tim D says we have a strong offensive line, period. We cannot run the ball because defenses know we have no deep threat. Hard to run the ball when 8 against the box. So again, there is always context to this thing. If you're very much just on Parker is the problem, my response to you is he is part of the problem. If you're just like, all you want to do is just blame Hartman, Hartman's the problem, he's a part of the problem. Receivers, they're part of the problem. Like offensive line, hell, running backs at times. This is a team game. If you just want one singular entity to blame for everything, go watch tennis. Because football, it's just bigger than that. So Tim, I do agree with you. I mean, these teams are stacking the box, for sure. So Kyle, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to bring this up about Jared Parker because he's catching a lot of slack for today's game, and rightfully so when the offense performed the way it has. And I've kind of belabored that. I think we both have. That's been a personnel issue. Looking at the drive chart, coming out of the half, Notre Dame had, I think Sam Hartman threw the interception to open the half. Is that right? His first one? Either way, second drive for Notre Dame was 74 yards and a touchdown. So right there, halftime adjustments. Parker made them on that second offensive drive in the third quarter. They were, I mentioned earlier, running a lot of crossing routes, a lot of stuff where they can just, Hartman can just throw darts here and there. And I know Chris Tyree got involved. And that's kind of one thing I was thinking about going into today's game. Chris Tyree, noted in the Notre Dame football game notes, one of the country's best in yards per catch. I think he's around top 20, top 15. So even though it is, kind of poor as Notre Dame's wide receiver corps has played, Chris Tyree has still been a bright spot. Going into this game, I think if you're Jared Parker, you have to know that he is your best pass-catching offense or pass-catching option. You have to find ways to get him the football. And I think they waited maybe a little bit too late, coming on, doing that on the second drive in the third quarter. They got away from it as well. They were all those short, like I mentioned, those quick little short passes that seemed to be effective that ended up in the scoring drive. And, they got away from it. So it looked good at first, like initially, halftime adjustments, but just kind of an interesting point that I thought there.
All right, we're going to hear from our sponsors over at Irish Realty, which is the ticket for Notre Dame football enjoyment. You can experience Notre Dame Notre Dame football enjoyment. They do well at home, maybe not so much on the road, but it's really your experience to enjoy Notre Dame all year long. Check them out, folks. irishrealty.net/walk2nd. It's a great time to enjoy football weekends. One left this year. A new era of men's basketball. You got a big time women's hoop program. Don't forget hockey, baseball, and the NCAA champion lacrosse team. Irish Realty is the market leader, whether you're looking for a condo, townhouse, or second home in Notre Dame country. Check out the affordable Eddy Square townhomes, 3-story units starting in the mid 300s, Brennan's View luxury condominiums near Eddy Square, or Echoes Villas, 4 and 5 bedroom upscale retreats. And don't miss the Belterry Villas, a new community, a new home community just north of campus, whether it's for pure enjoyment or an investment property opportunity. Irish Realty has you covered in the Notre Dame market. Check it out, irishrealty.net, folks. Continuing on with some super chats. Tarek Stewart, I did not see a comment with yours. Tarek, I'll be looking for you in the YouTube chat. Just drop another comment and I'll find yours. Annie Davis, the leader of the Drew Pine fan club, says Notre Dame Nation owes Drew Pine an apology for the slander. Put up the exact same numbers without help from the defense. I mean, you might want to look at the Clemson stats in that game. But Kyle, I don't know if you want to talk about this. I will pull up Drew Pine's stats and we can actually look at that in a second.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to not think about Drew Pine sometimes this season when Sam Hartman's wearing 10 and you're the number that Drew Pine wore and seeing the way Hartman's played at times. But I think at the end of the day, Notre Dame's probably gotten better production out of Hartman. Probably not by a whole lot, but just looking like Notre Dame's offense was way more one-dimensional.
Totally. I mean, you literally had Michael Mayer.
Yeah, I was just that was my next option. Just imagine what Sam Hartman would do with Michael Mayer. Like, I think that plays into it as well.
Right.
So, I will say, I do think Notre Dame fans do owe Drew Pine a little bit of apology.
Yeah, listen, this is what I'm talking about. Like, just how these things shift. Eddie Davis, I know him. Yeah, I know you're saying on the season, not today, Eddie. I know you. But I know this guy. He's been posting on our message boards, been on our YouTube chats for a couple of years at this point, and he's been a big Drew Pine guy. And last year, it's like Drew Pine's a jockey, according to Mike Goolsby. Like, everyone just rip on Drew Pine. And now it's like, oh, like Drew Pine, he wasn't the worst thing ever. Like he's just as good. Sam Hartman, that's kind of the talk right now, right? So let's just look at it. So Drew Pine, and again, there's the context of different passing options. You watched that Notre Dame game today, like, dude, there's not a lot for him there. 164 of two. This is fine. 164, 254, 65% completion percentage. Pretty good. 2,021 yards, 22 touchdowns to 6 picks, and that's in 11 games played, 10 starts. And this is Hartman before this game today. So he is 149 to 228 for 65%, 65.4, just a hair better than Pine in completion percentage for 2,126 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 5 picks. So now he'd be at 18 touchdowns and 7 picks. So they are pretty comparable. I mean, Hartman is right around what was he today? How many passing yards? 146. So his average will come down a little bit from that 236. And then Pine's yards per passing last year was 183. So I agree. It's like it's a step above Pine, but it's not as big as we would have thought. That's very much for sure. So yeah, Andy Davis, appreciate the super chat. Trash says Clemson really wanted payback for last few years. Yeah, Notre Dame got Clemson 2 out of the last 3 times. I mean, Clemson got the most important one, the ACC title game. But that eventually sent them to the playoff, right? Clemson went to the playoff that year. Was their loss just yeah, okay. So yeah, Trash, appreciate the 2. Ethan says Hartman has been a huge bust at Notre Dame. End of story.
I don't know what to tell you, right?
No, if your expectations were like me and you're like 11-1, 10-2, like, yes, I think the answer is yes. Not that like, and you can't put it all on him, but the Hartman experiment, yeah. Is it better than Tyler Buchner would have been this year? You could debate that, but I mean, Notre Dame chose to go with Sam Hartman because they thought that Buchner was not the guy. That's it. So it's better than Buchner, but if your expectations were like me and it's like this is a team that can be on the play in the playoffs, then yes, it was. I think that's just the truth. So, but it is a subjective thing. So, do you have anything on that? I'm looking for Tarek if Tarek had a super chat.
I mean, I think I'll say coming into this year, like anything worse than 10-2 would be considered a failure because that means you either lost all 3 of the big 3 games coming in this year, Ohio State, USC, or Clemson, or you dropped another game you weren't supposed to, and Notre Dame lost Ohio State, lost to Clemson.
Yeah.
And this Clemson game is turned into the game you probably weren't supposed to lose.
Yeah.
Clemson's kind of had a funky season, and they played Florida State, who's one of the best teams in the country, really tough at home. That Duke loss was pretty crazy. Cade Klubnik, like one of his first career starts, essentially, true sophomore quarterback, had a lot of fumbles against Duke and things like that. So Clemson's better than their record. They showed it today, but I mean, let's rely on the sports books on this one. They favored Notre Dame 3.5, upped it to 4, right? 4 points just before game time. So Vegas expected Notre Dame to win today. It wasn't just like it was a pick 'em either. So
yeah, I mean the lines move based on where the money's coming in, but yeah, I mean, but for the most part,
they opened.
yeah, sure. It's funny to me because going back to let's think about where we were at 6 months ago. None of you wanted anything to do with Steve Angeli, and now it's play Steve, play Steve, play Steve. I don't know how to feel about it. I do love Steve Angeli. He looked great against Pitt. I would love to see Steve. But we'll see what that looks like moving forward. Dad, appreciate you, Father, with the $5 super chats. He says, "Why continue to play Hartman? Time for Angeli." Right on point here, or right on cue, I should say. We touched on this. Like you play him because if you switch to Angeli, like what does that look like to your locker room? And you have 3 games left the rest of the season. I mean, and whoever's paying Hartman wants to see him, that's for sure. That those NIL deals that he's getting and whatnot, but I kind of say that as a half joke. But why continue to play Hartman? Because you want to.
Hartman needs to play.
Hartman needs to play. If they bench Hartman and go and start Angeli next week, I will be just as happy as some of you guys are. But you play
against
Hartman
Wake
to
Forest,
keep the ship afloat, kind of deal. I don't know. You got to ask the coaching staff that. I'm trying to answer on behalf of them, but I can't. So some of these questions I don't know the answer to. Yeah, I'm not one of the coaches. So that's kind of one of those things. So if it were me, I don't know what I would do. But I know what you guys would do because you keep telling me. But Kyle, do you have anything?
Yeah, no, you got to start Hartman. I mean, Hartman has to play, man. He's working to, reclaim his NFL draft stock at this rate. He's unfortunately, ever since the Ohio State game, he really hasn't put any good tape out there. And Hartman's going to want to play, especially next week. Look who he plays, or 2 weeks from now. Notre Dame has a bye, then they host Wake Forest. I think Hartman would give another rib to play in that game. Like Hartman's going to be playing the rest of the year, folks, unless he's injured. So
yeah, we'll
just kind of wipe that out of my. I mean, best case scenario is that Notre Dame shows up just like they did against Pitt. I don't know if Hartman will want to leave that Wake Forest game early, but same thing with Wake and Stanford. Keep continuing to get Steve Angeli reps because now he's going to continue to be an evaluation for that coaching staff when it comes in. I mean, I know they're going to have a pretty good idea. It sounds like after this week, if they go back on the portal for a quarterback, but I mean, they also they get to see Steve Angeli every single day in practice, whereas we don't. But game reps are the most.
Yeah. Folks, if you are just joining us here recently, and I haven't said this since you've joined us, please hit that thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to our channel, of course, for more content. If you listen via podcast, appreciate you guys. Just leave us a kind review if you wouldn't mind wherever you listen to your podcast. If you have not done that either, you guys will want to tune in tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern time, Mike Goolsby show. That will be entertaining and insightful as always. So you'll want to hear from the former captain tomorrow. And then I'll look to have Tim Hyde. If you're wondering why Tim Hyde's on our post-game show, Tim is coaching in a game that probably wrapped up here not too long ago. So he's with his high school team. So we will look to have Tim Hyde on the video in the near future. And we appreciate Kyle for filling in and giving us his thoughts today. Theodore says, why is Tobias outplayed by Faison?
Tobias can block.
Oh, come on.
Why is
I don't care about blocking right now. Because Faison's outplaying. I don't have. I mean, Tobias in his opportunities just hasn't done much. I mean, he had a nice catch today. A catch for 10 yards on 4 targets. He just hasn't been consistent all year, and Faison has some shit to him. He just does. Like, Faison is not phased. He's just not as the true freshman. Like, the dude's just a baller. Notre Dame's dude. I was thinking today, I don't know if Notre Dame football can allow him to go play lacrosse. Seriously, sorry, coach. The lacrosse coach, like, sorry, dude, he's playing football now. Like, he's a stud. He's outplaying Tobias because this year he's a better receiver than Tobias. We'll see about next year if Tobias can kind of tap into that potential. We know he has, but he's just simply a better receiver than Tobias Merriweather right now. I don't know what else to tell you, but it's a good question. But anyone else in the chat could tell me. So Okay. All right. Theodore, appreciate the 5. Mark Washington, $5 super chat. I've been looking for you, Mark. Haven't seen a comment to go with your super chats. When you guys are posting those super chats, before you hit submit, you're able to type out a comment that goes with it. So please do that. Mike says, if you want Singler to read your comments, you have to super chat. I guess you're wrong, Mike, because I just read yours. But appreciate it, Mike. Brian says, at least Hartman has a solid beard. $2 super chat. Thank you, Brian. Mike with the 5 says, bad across the board game plan, play calling, performance. Somehow we have Coach Sam Hartman backwards. Offense not suiting him. That's very concerning. I mean, we can't. We can't just, can't just protect him. He threw a pick 6 today. But like I said many times on the show, across the board, just it's not getting it done. No one is. I mean, O-line has been okay, and then the running backs are pretty darn impressive. I mean, that's a great group, but otherwise, I don't know. I mean, back to the drawing board, I guess. I don't know. Kyle, any thoughts?
I think we probably need to see a little bit more estimate today. I know that's not really incredibly related to the question, but
yeah, I mean, you mentioned earlier, like that your play calling changes when you're behind and playing some catch up, and Notre Dame's offense isn't really built to come from behind. Like this Notre Dame, like when Notre Dame is playing good teams, Notre Dame has to just take care of the football. Excuse me. And they didn't do that today with 3 turnovers. Take care of the football, play really good defense, and get a good play in the special teams. We haven't even talked yet about Chris Tyree's muffed punt. How about that? That was a huge killer for Notre Dame. Pick 6. So all 3 of facets, you just didn't get the job done. Defense, I thought played okay. So maybe they get like a B minus, C plus or something. They weren't bad. I mean, they actually held Clemson under 300 yards, and only 24 points. But offense didn't take care of the ball. Special teams had blunders. Defense was fairly decent. I'm curious what you guys thought about the defense. Let me know in the YouTube chat. Yeah, not great. But Mike, appreciate the super chat. Colin says, Mike, Kyle, in the MIA 10, we appreciate you guys talking through the team's issues. Dealing with most Notre Dame fans isn't easy. Kudos. Colin, I really appreciate the 5, my friend. It can be tricky because sometimes we don't have popular opinions, but we're going to continue to give them. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry. We're not going to, just say things to agree with the masses. So going to the defense, Left Twig says a lot of missed tackles.
yes,
Defense gave up 1 real touch. I mean, they've missed tackles for the past 2 years. Like that's just been kind of an MO of this defense, unfortunately. Except for like the USC game, I thought they tackled pretty well. Defense gave up 1 real touchdown drive and 1 touch on the busted play. Maffa touchdown. We haven't even really talked about too much of the game specifically. It was a blitz. DJ Brown blitzes in, runs right by Phil Maffa, and I watched the replay, and Maris Leofau just misread that play completely. Just no. But yeah, the rest of the defense again, you force 2 turnovers and you hold Clemson to under 300 yards. Not a bad day at the office. Now, Maffa did run for 186, but he carried the ball almost 40 times. I mean, it's not like he went 18 carries, 186 yards. It was 36 carries. That's a shit ton of carries.
The 1 big run too. That was a good chunk of it. I mean, it was definitely so well over 100 yards, but
sure. Okay. Do we have any other supersets? I think that just about does it. Tariq and Mark Washington, if you guys are still watching, thank you for those super chats. I still haven't seen any follow-up comments from you guys. I apologize if I missed them. But yeah, I think that's about that's Kyle. Appreciate you hosting the show with me today. Again, we will have the Mike Goolsby show tomorrow night. Which bring your popcorn. You already know that's going to be entertaining. And then we will have Tim Hyde in some form on our show on our YouTube channel in the next few days. And then we'll have our live show, of course, with myself and Tim Hyde next Wednesday night. So we will catch you guys later. Tyler Horka and Jack Sobel will have a video on our YouTube channel, probably posted in the next couple hours. And as always, folks, we will catch you next time.